Hello, San Francisco, and welcome once again to the Angelic Troublemakers. I'm your host, Alan Jones, and on today's program, Activating the Activist. I may have spoken on this subject before, but the world is being inundated with a bunch of young activists doing their bit for climate change. And I must confess, when I was a teenager, activism was probably didn't even know how to spell it. Didn't know what it meant, none of that. And though I'm not one who supports the fear tactics that are behind activism related to climate change, I like the fact that young people are engaged. And though I definitely do not, uh, I'm not buying into the climate change. Not that I don't believe in it, it's the fear factor. If God wants us to be here, we ain't going to destroy this earth. Plain and simple. But the purpose of me bringing you this program, Activating the Activists, has to do with the fact that I have a long story to tell on how I uh, got into my activism on various subjects. And seeing young people leave school in protest of the government not doing enough, in their opinion, on the issues that are causing our planet to do whatever it's doing climate wise. One one sign I read that the kids had produced was, uh, if the Earth was cool, then I could go to school, or something to that effect. And I recall Senator Dianne Feinstein, 80 years old or older, trying to be lectured by a 9-year-old on climate change. It just didn't seem right. And in my life, I've seen certain things that, well, just didn't seem right. Where there are people who are going on about their business, couldn't care less about what else is going on in the world. For instance, Mark Class. You remember him? This father of a 12-year-old girl was just living his life. He was divorced, and he had his daughter. I know he loved his daughter, but he was just living his life. And then someone kidnapped his daughter. And the whole situation that came about in they caught the guy. There was a trial, and this guy became an instant advocate and an instant expert on kidnapped children. Now, I just I, something just didn't ring right. There have been people running around protecting kids and advocating for children for all the years, and then he gets his daughter kidnapped, and he is the instant expert. Well, when it comes to activism, I honestly believe we should all be activists. And though I'm not subscribing to the climate change activism, hey, it's not like I don't support what they're doing. I don't support their argument, their reasoning. But why would I be against a cleaner environment and less pollutants in the air and in the land and in the sea? But the fact that we all have something to do in this earth, we were all put here for a good purpose, and it's beyond having a good time. I think God wants us all to enjoy life on this earth while we're here. And we do have a responsibility. You know, when you think of the fact that, hey, if we dirty it up, common sense says we should clean it up. And that's where I come from. It's a common sense type issue. But the browbeating of people who don't follow along with climate change, I can't handle it. Their arguments are weak. They're uneducated. There was a young girl who sailed around the world or whatever. She sailed from Australia or something like that to the United States to promote climate change, whatever. And so she might be sailing back home. I'm not sure. But this young girl, it's obvious somebody pumped up her brain with a whole bunch of stuff, and there's not a balance there. And so you take situations like that, and I recall another incident where these young people were saying, well, if there ain't going to be no earth here, why should I go to school? That was their argument, their pitch towards cutting school to get people to talk on climate change. Well, that's a stupid argument. You know, it doesn't make any sense that you would use such a weak argument, to say you want a cleaner air. I'm going to not go to school until you give me cleaner air. Give me a break. Where do people get up the nerve to put young people up to stuff like that? In New York, I heard more than 1 million school-age kids were given the day off to participate in the climate change protests that are marches that were going on throughout the world. Not in San Francisco. They weren't given that permission. Now, I saw an awful lot of young people out there. But the fact of the matter is when it comes to activism, do your homework. I remember when I was a teenager, and the fact that only thing on my mind was probably sex, maybe sports. But the fact of the matter is I feel somewhat sorry for the young people because they are denying themselves the opportunity to enjoy teenage years because they're so worried about there not being a tomorrow. It's sad. But I can tell you, I enjoyed my childhood. Was it rough? No. It was interesting. It was challenging. But I had a lot of fun, as I remember. I mean, there were some sad parts. But the fact of the matter is I, for the most part, enjoyed my and was allowed to enjoy my childhood. But when I became an adult and I experienced a few things, including drugs, not when I was a child, after I turned 18 or 19, uh, I just went on out and did my little old thing, having a good old time. But then things started to turn. And I ended up going to church. And after going to church, excuse me, someone invited me to go up to the San Francisco Juvenile Hall to help teach a Bible study. Well, I knew nothing about the Bible. I didn't see any possible good that I could have done. But I was, in my opinion, answering the call. I honestly believe that I was put on this earth for a certain reason, and it had to do with people who are incarcerated. Now, did I know that at the time? No. But 10 years of me being up at the San Francisco Juvenile Hall, mainly counseling and teaching the Bible in the maximum security unit to teenage murderers, rapists, gang members, stuff like that, something got in me. And when I unceremoniously was taken out of that position, something stuck. It was in me. It was not right what people did to me to get me out of there. After they realized it, they even tried to get me back. But I wasn't playing that game. But an activism was in me. And the activism was in me to advocate for the young people who were still up at the juvenile hall. And so my first deal was I thought that they needed a chaplain because after I was kicked out, they didn't have no religious consultation in the maximum security unit. And so for years, I said, no, this is not right. Because of what you did to me, hey, there needs to be a chaplain up here. And so I pounded the desk and the offices, and I went around doing my thing. And it was my efforts advocating for the kids up at juvenile hall, the young men who had a whole life ahead of them, to get them a chaplain. And so my efforts paid off. The Juvenile Probation Commission, under the head of Charles Breyer, who is now a judge, brother of Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. Well, this Charles Breyer did his work based on me coming into commission meetings and letting them know what was going on, what the kids weren't getting, what they did need, and stuff like that. Turned out they were able, for I think 3 years in a row, pay somebody $75,000 a year to give religious instructions to the young people that I used to minister to. And so I really, you know, realized that I did something, and so it stuck with me. And I could honestly say that if it had not been for the fact that it was in me deep. I mean, years and years and years of seeing something and then having it snatched away from me. I wasn't thinking of myself because I know what I'm capable of doing. But these young people, they needed something. And so I started advocating for them. Well, I became a activist, prison reform activist. Because not only did I speak with the young people of the juvenile hall, many of them, sadly, went on to either the youth authority or state prison, and kept in touch with a few of them, and get some sad letters. And then in the news, I hear different things about people being sentenced, to 100 years for stealing bubble gum. I'm exaggerating, but you follow me. But the fact of the matter is I knew that something's not right. In the year 2000, I was watching the real respected 60 Minutes TV program, and they were doing a story on California's three strikes law. And so, as I'm doing my bit to stay up on anything related to prisons and incarcerations, I paid close attention. The governor at the time was Gray Davis, was his name. And I don't remember who was interviewing him, but they asked him, "You think that it's okay that a man get 25 years for stealing a bicycle?" And the governor was fumbling around on his words in this program, and he was justifying a 25-year to life sentence under the old three strikes law in California for a man who stole a bicycle. And then there was somebody stole $50 worth of cassettes or 8 tracks or something like that. Somebody wrote a check for, I think, a bad check for less than $100. Now, I am not lying. This man got a 25 to life sentence under the three strikes law because he had 2 prior felonies. And the three strikes law was, at the time, if you commit a third felony, even if it's a minor issue, you have to do automatically 25 years. Well, while he was doing his time, I think it was like 10 years into his sentence, there was another man who stole $200 million from retired people. But it was his first strike. Which one do you think got out of prison first? The man who stole $200 million from old people, their retirement fund, was scheduled to get out of prison earlier than the man who wrote a $90-something bad check under the three strikes law. Well, I'm not going to sit back and just let stuff like that happen without saying anything. The man who's serving a 25 to life sentence for stealing a bicycle, I wasn't going to just let that go on. So I had to get going, doing, thinking. I recall when that Three Strikes episode on 60 Minutes was happening, and the governor was justifying this ridiculous sentence for this minor offense. I honestly believe I went into a trance staring at the TV. And I was like, this is not right. And I came up with, I believe, to be a solution. Now, pause on that. That was the year 2000. This is the year 2019. I came up with a solution to that problem in the year 2000. And I'm still working on it in the year 2019. And so I'm staying on this issue until I get what I believe is right. Justice. I have at the end of every one of my emails a slogan that what do you call it? A motto that I have, and it's the only thing I love more than justice is the freedom to fight for it. And I am fighting for justice of prisoners. Now, I have to say, there are way too many prisoners who are locked up throughout the country. And I'm determined to do something about it. Am I right still down on the ground level? Yes. Now, because I have this desire to see something done, and I know it's an uphill battle, what am I going to do? How is my activism going to really get me to where I know I'm going to end up? Well, I wrote a book. And the title of the book was Case Game Activating the Activist, was the subtitle. And so in the book, I just tell the story of my life. So it was an autobiography. I had many victories and many defeats. And so it's not a memoir, it's an autobiography because I tell about my wins and losses in life. But in the book, it basically ends with a promise that I am going to do something else. Now, you can't tell it by reading it, but I put it in the book. Now, I first published the book in 2010 or 2011. But because I had made a mistake in the book, I had to correct something and reissue the book. I think I reissued it in 2015. But the book's just laying around collecting dust. It's published, self-published. It's even in the San Francisco Public Library. But I say all of that because in my life, the reason why I titled the book Case Game, Activating the Activist, is because my life was set up this way. I'm following a path. And I honestly believe that we all are to follow a path. Now, sadly, some of us get sidetracked through silliness. If it's not alcohol, drugs, you name it, we get sidetracked. But I'm saying that I admit I did get sidetracked, but through the grace of God, back on track, I claim. And so, for me, I see that in a lot of people's lives, there is this activist in them. And I see this week in these young people, they are getting a taste of it. And when they realize that they're not going to get any success today, but they're going to get success. And they're going to be able to build on it. And this is what I see in the young people that are activists 10 years younger than when I first started. This is very encouraging. Sure, as I said, I think they're off their rocker far as climate change is concerned. Do I believe in climate change? Yes. I believe that climate change is what got rid of the dinosaurs. But I'm saying that if God saw fit that the dinosaurs perished, who are we to say that we should have more of a life than dinosaurs? They were here first. And I don't think that we can any more affect climate change than the dinosaurs did. That's just my personal opinion. But I sure do support what they're doing. Why? Because I don't like litter. I don't like it on the ground, I don't like it in the water, and I don't like it in the air. And so if they want to clean energy, because all of the pollutants, I will be first to admit, people are dying of cancer because of stuff that they're breathing, as well as some of the stuff that they're eating. And so for these young people to be so aware, I say knock yourself out. Now, I did hear something else. And this is where I'm really, sideways on climate change. I heard that we need to get rid of or stop eating or reduce 90% or 91% of the meat that we eat and 60% of the dairy. And that'll fix this issue with climate change. Honest, I heard this. And this is from a well-respected person on TV. Now, for all of the solar panels, all of the thises and the that, and fossil fuels, coal, and all of these different arguments, you take all of those things, and then there's somebody around the corner saying, no, this is the way to do it. All I'm saying is I'm going to stay in my lane. I am not going to criticize these people too much. I'm going to stay out of it. You're not going to catch me being filthy. But I am going to leave that to those who are studying it. I just request that you do your homework, because I've heard all kind of arguments on this climate issue, and I'm not buying any of them. I'm doing my own thing, and I'm activating the activist within me. And the reason why I know that I can do it is because I really studied the subject. And I hope you do the same.